Well, good evening. Something very different tonight. It's a bit of a highlight show. So, effectively, this week's guest let me know at the last minute that they couldn't make it. It seems to happen a few times. I don't know whether they get cold feet or or just nervous about my interview technique. I don't know what that is, but effectively, I'm going to do something different. Actually, it's a highlight show. I spent the afternoon actually getting stuff together and putting a video together of all the highlights of some of the interviews that I've done. It's not everybody because I just didn't have time to do all of them, and I will do another one at a later date. But first of all, as usual, just talk about a few things. Edition 11 of the Flux review is here. This edition 12 is coming out very shortly. Lisa is working on that as we speak. But that, of course, leads on to leads on effectively to the next exhibition, which is in Marylebone, 17th to 20th of July 2025. Tickets are available on Eventbrite. Just search for Flux exhibition. And to give you an idea, look, it's in the Bomb Factory. Fantastic venue, very industrial, amazing place. And Lisa Gray puts this all together, which is quite stunning actually, how she manages to put all this together. There's a little team of us that help, but she's the main influence on everything that goes on, and it gives you a little bit of a flavor. Opening night, normally an awful lot of people come to the PV, and you can get tickets for that, as I've just said. So one of the things that kind of what I want to talk about probably before I actually kick off with the highlight show, I thought I might do a little bit and give people a bit of a flavour about a talk that I do, which is called "Reality is for People with No Imagination." And I was did the Lincoln Photographic Association, the other side of Lincoln. They had a photography day on Sunday, and I did my 2-hour talk in the morning. This is a little flavour from it. For those of you that are out there who are budding photographic artists, but not really quite sure how to start or where to go with it, because let's face it, photography's not really been considered as being art that long. Actually, it's quite a new thing in some respects. But if you're going to go down the fine art route, one of the places that I would say start, have a look at the work of the old masters. So to give you a bit of an idea of that, how does looking at the old masters help us to create fine art images? So study how they used light in their work. Your work needs to tell a story. Emotion plays a huge part in getting that story across, and then creating atmosphere makes a big difference. So once you've got that kind of thing into your head, and then you look at the artist, if you look at somebody like Caravaggio, for example, he was born 300 years before photography was invented. And here we are. Look at these images. Look at the way that the light is created just with a paintbrush and paints. So for me, light is my big thing. And therefore, I use light to tell my story in the same way as Caravaggio does, in the same way as Vermeer did. We're all familiar with the girl with the pearl earring, but look at the way that Vermeer has created the astronomer image on the right, which is basically, look at the light coming through the window. Look at the way that he's created that with a paintbrush, and look at the atmosphere that has actually generated. Now, I don't often talk about the work that I do. I mention it sometimes in interviews, but generally I don't talk about it that much. But I thought I'd just give you a bit of an idea of a couple of things that will be new for me at Flux, new works that I've been working on. And they are, each one tells a story. So it gives you a bit of an idea how I used Vermeer and Caravaggio's techniques with light to create my work. So first one is Alice in Wonderland. So to give you an idea, and some of you might have seen my video on Instagram actually of how I did this, but basically all those elements, and there's a lot of them. The books I threw on the floor up in one of the bedrooms upstairs and photographed those. The Queen, the fairies, the knave at the back, they're all from the Gardens of the Bay, actually, in Singapore. Those hands at the back belong to my wife. The heart, not that colour, but that's sitting upstairs, hanging off a wardrobe. And then Scarlet Butterfly, who has got a burlesque act as Alice in Wonderland. It's obviously photographed her in a studio. She's holding a book, which is Alice in Wonderland, sitting on the toadstool that is also at Gardens of the Bay. The base of the toadstool, there's a Alice in Wonderland teapot, my favourite cake sitting there as well. If anybody's out there, fancy sending me, fancy sending me a cherry bakewell. Yeah, that's right up my street. And also her shoes are sitting at the bottom, and then the lavender fields at Hitchin, I've changed the colors to suit what I'm looking for. So awful lot of work goes into one image, and again you can see it's telling a story. Another one here, very simple actually. It's another new one. Just went to the British Museum, photographed that timepiece. It's called Paragon of Time. And then this is an artist called Jane Farley, who I did a shoot with, photographed her, photographs of bed sheets, screwed them all up, and then built all of that image to create this called Paragon of Time. And then the final one, which I only finished last week, actually, which will, again, this will be on show at Flux, is based on Cinderella. And this is called After the Ball, and is actually Jane's sister Dawn, who was over from Denmark. She's a film director and actress. And the idea here being, if you do look at this carefully, you will see in the background on the left-hand side, there is a pumpkin carriage with the wheel come off. She's running with the glass slipper in her hand. And this is actually the Lake District. Took those pictures in Lake District. So this is kind of gives you a bit of an idea how I work to create the fine art images that I then have printed on metal. So I just really wanted to give people out there who are looking at doing sort of fine art photography a little bit of a steer. And if you manage to catch my talk, it is a 2-hour talk. It really does help you have the imagination if you haven't got one. It is very fair to say that people do think I smoke something dodgy. That's not true at all. So how have I selected people for this highlights show? To be honest, it's just whatever came up in order on my computer. I had such little time to put this together. It's a 40-minute film effectively of highlights. I haven't been able to fit everybody into it, but I just selected bits that give a flavor of each artist. So hopefully you can then go back onto the YouTube channel and say, pretty much comment whatever you like. I have so Lee Lee Churchill, who, as you know, watches every week. He's sitting in a premiere in somewhere on with dodgy Wi-Fi apparently, but he is. Yeah, thanks, Lee. That's the kind of comment that I get a lot, and I'm really grateful for it as well. It is about imagination, funny enough, and I think all art is often about imagination, because the artist needs to have a brain that is able to create that amazing art. And you'll see from some of these interviews, the bits that I've selected, there is a link, really quite a strong link, between music and art. Quite a few people I've interviewed are musicians who then become artists. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the bits that I've put together. It's a little bit not quite Graham Norton. It's not quite that level, but is. There's about 2 minutes of each artist, and I've done over 30 of these, so I've managed to choose quite a few. But I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you at the end. But anybody putting any comments in the chat, I will reply in the chat while this is running. So feel free. I'm not going to run away and have my dinner or anything like that. So I will still be here. Catch you in a bit. There's a bit of a rebellious streak in you there, because the music, that side of it, you wanted to. I think as creatives, I feel anyway that there's a bit about leaving your mark, and I think that's the way you do it, because that's where other people see your work, hear your music. But do you think there was a bit of? Do you think there's a little bit of that rebellious streak in you?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, there was, I've always been anti-authority, and I kind of still am. And yeah, the rebellious, the rebel thing is still strong. Actually, I think once you've got that in you, and I think it actually informs. To me, anyway, it informs my artistic practice and also my music. And I like to break boundaries that are set. And, I mean, I know, for example, I could be raving on here, but, a true artist is seen as having a particular style, and then they follow through on that. And I think if anyone's seen my work, I do both conservative landscapes and fairly sort of strange, not strange abstracts, but abstracts. And so I've kind of broken the mold, I think, in terms of that. So I've rebelled against what's even seen to be, that sort of lineage where I like to do both.
I had been doing portrait and fashion photography in studio. I've been a photographer for over 20 years now, and I love being a photographer. I love using a camera, and I love photographing people. So I had been doing portrait and fashion photography in studio or on location, often with hair and makeup and stylists and people around. And it was always somewhat chaotic and stressful. I'm an introvert, and I like things quiet and peaceful and calm. So after work, I would come home and go into my swimming pool and sit on the bottom of the swimming pool, where it was calm and peaceful and quiet, and no one could bother me. And, I would do that all the time. And then one day I thought to myself, while sitting on the bottom of my swimming pool, if I could just work here.
Yeah.
And it's like, other people photograph underwater, why can't I? So it took quite a few years to figure it out. But, once I got the science of it all dialed in, then it just, now in a way it's just a piece of cake. But the first model I put into the water, and I watched her just relax completely. And it's like, okay, so this is good, not just for me, but for the models too. And my whole point with the work is to capture that sense and feeling of peace and quiet and tranquility and no stress. Everything is going to be okay.
Do you see your work as telling a story, or you've already said about it being a feeling? Do you think it's more about conveying a particular feeling?
Yeah, I don't think there's definitely nothing dark in my work at all. It's all very joyful and uplifting. And I think the sort of people who buy it tend to want something that's going to give them a bit of joy. So it's going to sort of liven up their space, and it's got good energy. I think my work has good energy because I have good energy. So
yeah, and I think I think also one of the other things that's that is important is that you're able to talk to people that have come to see your work, and then once you start explaining what you do, how you do it, where your work is from, they start to get it. And I think that a lot of the times they're I don't know, well, I don't know how you feel, but one of the things that sort of upsets me the most is when people walk past and don't even look. And I feel like I want to run after them and drag them back and go, right, come on, tell me, why didn't you even bother looking?
No,
And
I've got friends who don't get my work at all, and they unless it looks realistic, they just don't get it. But that's fine, because that there's people out there that like my work, and I know that now because I'm actually selling quite well at the moment, and
yeah, good.
And it's so lovely. I opened my home studio for the first time this year, and it was open for 2 weeks. The first week was quite quiet, but those few people that did come were telling all their friends how lovely it was and how much work I had on show. And the second week I had loads of people, really lovely people, with lots of sales, and yeah, it was just really nice.
First of all, though, how did you start? What made you go down the art route in the first place?
Well, it's something I've been into really all my life, I suppose. I was always it's one of those subjects I was really good at school, and then I didn't really take it up. I just kind of doodled and did lots of bits and bobs sort of throughout my life, but then didn't come back to it until later. A friend of mine, I was boarding dogs at the time, and I was looking after her. It's a new client, looking after her dog. And for some reason we got on to talking about art. I think she'd seen maybe a picture of mine on the wall, and we got talking about art, and she said, you have to come to this class. This tutor's so inspiring, and he'll just get you to think outside the box and just bring out your style. So it kind of went from there really, and it was just lovely meeting everyone there and collaborating with artists there. It sort of went from one exhibition to the next and doing that with friends. So it was amazing. It's just led on from there really.
And how long ago was that?
That was probably about 8-9 years ago.
Right.
When I started.
So, okay, that's 8-9 years ago. You started. This is where you started.
Yes. Yeah.
Why animals? What's the draw?
I've just animals again is another thing of mine. I just absolutely love animals and work with animals, and been to South Africa a lot. My mother-in-law had a place near Cape Town, and I was just so inspired by the whole country, everything about it, and animals in particular. I'm just drawn to. I'm an animal person. So
yeah, but it's it's one thing being drawn to them, but it's another thing drawing them. Yeah. So where's that? Do you photograph them and draw it from that, or do you sit there and just get a flavour of them while you're painting?
Yeah, it's hard to draw animals from life. Really, But yeah, I get references really, reference photos which I've taken myself. I've used other people's photographic work really, and it's just changing it up a little bit. I started off quite photographic, or trying to get that realism. Yeah. But there are so many good wildlife artists out there. It's just changing it up a little bit and just doing something a little bit different.
And then I did a calendar to raise money for endometriosis, and you also featured in this. Now this is actually from your act called Fire and Ice.
It is, yes.
This is the costume that you created. Now people can see when they're looking at that, when they look at the horns on your head, who are the people who make those things, those kind of things for you?
Yeah, so I will have a very clear idea of what I want the costume to look like, and if you put me in front of a sewing machine with some fabric, I will be hopeless. But I am very good at crafting certain bits of it. So in this particular picture, the corset, I have a corsetier called White Phantom, and she makes all of my corsets. She's just outstanding, and she's very collaborative, and I have to have a lot of input. If I'm working with somebody else on a costume, I need to have a lot of input, so I pick the right people. They'll kind of put things on a mannequin and they'll say, is this all right? Do you want a bit more bling? Do we need to change the kind of the color balance? and so there's a lot of backing and forthing. But so the corset was made by White Phantom, but the cage bra that I'm wearing in that was made completely by me. With the help of Peter Walton, our mutual friend Peter Walton, who was really good at kind of making the frame. He helped me kind of create the frame, but I made that, and then the other bits and pieces that are on my feet were made by me, and then the skirt was made by a really good friend of mine called Sandra Rowan, and she's made quite a lot of my costume pieces as well. So it's kind of a bit of me and a bit of other people. The thing around my neck, that's me. The eyes, I have a bit of a trademark with my costumes, and because I'm Scarlet Butterfly, I have often have these little butterfly wings that are on the corners of my eyes, and it's kind of a bit of a trademark of me. So there will usually almost always be a butterfly somewhere on my costume when I'm performing. Not always, but almost. I'd say about 95% of the time there will be a butterfly somewhere on my costume.
Most people either thought that they were paintings or that they were jellyfish. I don't know why. That was just the most common question.
Was it? I can I can understand that, especially this one. Yeah, you can kind of feel a little bit. You can kind of feel a little bit, can't you, that there's a bit of a jellyfish feel, especially in some of these, not necessarily this one, but especially in this particular one where it's almost, this probably got that little bit of sort of Portuguese man of war feeling to it, because they are that sort of color, and you can see in the middle it does look like jellyfish coming through on in the sea. Yeah, I can understand that. What a great comment. We've got a comment here that's just come up. The Master Max love the artworks, and I think there's going to be quite a few people that love the artworks as well, because they are fantastic. And this is another one that's really absolutely love. So again, I'm interested to know, do you how many times do you end up thinking, oh, hold on a minute, I've gone too far, I need to go back in my history and just go back a little bit because I've taken that a bit too far? Does that happen quite often?
Actually, no. Very rare.
Don't, hold on a minute. What do you mean no? Oh no, it's yeah, okay, interesting. I mean, it would be me. I would be thinking, oh no, hold on, you've pushed that a little bit too far. Just jump back a stage and pull it back a little bit. Yeah,
I think I have the opposite. It's whether I know if I've done enough.
So my work is completely without brushes.
Is it?
And I came across this wonderful acrylic paint pouring. Now, paint pouring or fluid art can conjure up lots of different things. There are lots of different types of fluid paints, but this is actually where you mix paint to a consistency that you want to use it, that works for your artwork. As you can see on that slide, that's quite a mix, and it's quite thick. And so coming into the, I actually got hooked because of these acrylic paints. You could see when you had them mixed in there with their pouring medium, and you poured them on top of each other in a cup, the colours, the layers stayed the same. They didn't blend and they didn't mix. Not like, watercolours where you kind of dip your brush in and all the water goes sort of muddy. And I think that's what really captivated my imagination, I suppose. And I wanted to get to know a little bit more about the paint. And so I followed lots of YouTubers. There are some fabulous artists out there. And of course, I fell into this in lockdown. So I was looking, on YouTube, watching so many different artists and getting lots of ideas. And there were these great big Dutch pours, they call them, where you blow the paint out with a hairdryer or this, that, and the other. And I thought, well, so many people are doing this. I would like to do something a little bit different.
initial concepts that informed the pieces. What was that concept? Where did that come from?
Well, I would say that when I first started making those pieces, I didn't necessarily, well, I definitely didn't have that idea of facial perception in mind. When I started making the pieces, I was very interested in ambiguity, different ways of viewing the same things. So, you know, two sides to a story, multiple ways to understand a conversation, many ways to interpret an artwork. I was particularly interested in the two sides of the human brain, left and right hemispheres, and therefore the two different types of processing, of cognitive processing in the brain. And particularly, I was interested in how there could be a mismatch between how someone feels inside, what their existence is like from within, and how they might be perceived by others. So I guess dichotomies in general, really, if that makes sense. So that was the initial sort of general idea of conceptual elements.
And I know, yeah, well, it does. And I know that this, I mean, this image is sitting behind you, but it's also the first sort of one that started it all off, is as far as I understand, which is
this one.
Side so that people can see this. Yeah, this one. Well, that music link is actually quite a good link to the first picture that I'd like to talk about, because I know the story behind this picture, and I'd like you to run through it as well, because I think it's really quite cool.
Yeah, that is based on a very famous Hockney picture called A Bigger Splash that I recreated, and the twist is it's got a Rolls Royce that's crashed into it, and that's actually Keith Moon's Rolls Royce. So if you're old enough, you'd remember Keith Moon as a crazy drummer, and if you're not, he was a proper rock and roll, crazy, drug taking, huge drinking madman. And it's a fictitious meeting between Keith Moon and David Hockney called Keith Moon Drops In. And twice, actually, once when I was showing it, a woman was looking at it and I went to explain the story behind it. And she said, yes, I know. I had a crazy week with him in his hotel in the 70s where she met him in a club and ended up spending a week with him, and hair-raising stories. And the second thing about that picture is someone bought 3 copies in America, and I emailed them and said, look, I'm just checking, did you mean to buy 3 rather than 1? And she said, yes, it's for me and my children. And she said, I am Keith Moon's daughter.
This is a series. I've got your website up, actually. This is a series of pictures, isn't it, that are all related to each other?
Yes. So this is a series called Alchemy.
Alchemy.
I'm very fond of the idea that the process and the history of alchemy, because it's about doing and transformation, and the old story was to transform a stone into gold, but it's the transformation of anything. And for me, this series is about transforming the power of emotions. So by being a coach, emotions are at the center of my work, but also in the personal life. I'm pushing the boundaries. So I was going through a period of a personal turmoil, still going, and I didn't want to go defensive. I didn't want to, in my mind, because I got some difficult experiences, to say, okay, I give up on that particular area of my life, on those emotions, and I retreat. So I wanted to give the idea that if it's contained, you can still have the full emotion. You can still play and experiment and actually feel fully alive. So each line is represents a boundary. So you need to contain the particular emotion, but within the emotion you're free to feel.
Let's bring up one of your latest works. So again, this is something slightly different of color palette, but you can see that this is pattern based. Now, I have read on your website that this is you potentially bringing your dreams to reality. So first of all, I'm kind of wondering, is this too much Ovaltine when you go to bed that's making these dreams come out of you? Or is, because people often ask me, do I smoke something dodgy with my work? But so let's explore this one then a little bit more. So give me a starting point.
So Gary, all my latest works are really inspired by, you know, the ancient Japanese calligraphy art, which is shodo.
Yeah, I can see that now,
yes, so the style is the way you put a pressure, and it is very concentrated, and then it's got the link, it's got an overlap of kalamkari art, which is an Indian folk art form, and like it says kalamkari, kalam means the pen and kari means the fine art work, and which is based on nature. And if you see these further, the calligraphy strokes have been merged with fine patterns, and those patterns are basically from the nature. And my entire this series is actually exploring emotions, shades of emotions.
What I want to do is I've got some images that you've very kindly sent me. I've picked a few out of the 37 you sent me. It's like what I couldn't believe was that weed transfer you sent me was at 4 o'clock in the morning, which I'm thinking, what the hell is going on?
However, people, they don't have limits to when they work.
No, well, that's true. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this first one up, because I know there's a sort of story over your landscapes. So that's what this first one is. I'll bring us up beside it. So let's have a little bit of I think everybody will recognize where that is, but let's have a little bit of thought behind this and where this sits in your artistic life.
So the cityscapes really only came by an accident. So all of these pieces, I just turned around to look at it and it's in front of me. All of those pieces that are individually got different colored strips and different designs in them are all pieces that either broke or went wrong in a project that I was making. And the title of the exhibition was New Beginnings. So I looked at all these pieces thinking, what can I make out of it? And that's how the cityscapes actually came by. Out of sometimes, quite often, things will go wrong. And it's too expensive to just put it to one side and not use it. And quite so, when lots of little bits and pieces are on my table and I'm just walking backwards and forwards, I kind of then just go, do you know what? That actually could look like this and this could look like that.
Superb.
And what you can't see there are the boats are removable. They're built into little pockets. So you can pick the boats up and swap them around.
I can see from your artist statement, heavily influenced by historical photography processes. So let's have a little chat about that then. In what terms are you referring to?
Oh God, tintype. I love tintype.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a really, really good friend who has that's his business actually.
Wow.
He goes to, so as people will know, I do the steampunk events, and he's always there, Greg, and he has this. He's developing. His developing unit is actually a TARDIS, like Doctor Who. So he's got the big camera, takes his picture, and then he goes in there and does the developing. He sells a lot. but that's his thing.
Yeah.
And he's brilliant at it, absolutely brilliant at it. So I can see why you love that, and I can see why with some of your pictures you've almost gone in that direction with, but
I have,
in the way
in a
that
more
you
modern way. You know, I love sepia. I love sepia photography. Like this one, for instance.
Right. So if you, now you're holding that to the light, and now we can see
the gold.
The gold, which you can't obviously
you can't see.
see.
Yeah, it's funny. I just did
the
landmark fair in Teddington, and I had people come up and say, "Oh, that's a nice photograph," and then I picked it up and did this to it, and they went, "Wow, didn't realise." You know, it's hard. It needs light to show it off.
It does, and
it changes throughout the day. It's lovely, you know, depending on where you put it. Throughout the day, the light changes, obviously, and it just changes the picture.
This, in my view, in this particular picture, the title is quite descriptive of exactly what you can see there, because you've got that movement, you've got the impression in the background of it, of the night, and people dancing. I can see what 2, 4, 5 or 6 people dancing there, and they're dancing. It's pretty red hot. They're absolutely going for it, and that's what it does to me. You see,
Gary, I'm gonna have to put you right there.
Oh well, yeah, but what I'm saying is, but this
that is absolutely brilliant that you can see that. As
yes, but everybody sees.
And now you're saying
different.
it, that's really good. Can I give you a background of that one?
Yeah, go on.
You know, I was saying about outside influence of being in my studio and This one, I actually went on which I said I was going to go on to a residency in India.
Okay.
And that was back in 2016. And I was painting on top of a mountain, not literally on the mountain. There was a studio there for 6 or 7 weeks. And that was the only time I really had a lot of outside influence, as in, as in things to look at, because it was absolutely beautiful. And there's a few paintings that I've got from that. This was one of them. And it was basically, we used to get a lot of moths in the studio.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
And basically I'd get up in the morning and I'd done sort of like the base for my for my painting to work on the next morning or something like that. And then I found that there was loads of moths that looked like they'd had a party. And they were dancing on my canvas.
Well, look, I'll tell you what, those moths have given you a great idea, because I told you what I see in that, what I see. How does that actually come about? How are you dropping things onto the canvas, or what's your process to get that to look like it does?
Yeah, that's it. Everything evolves, doesn't it? You must have done in your work as well, Gary.
Yeah,
you start off with a flat image, and then you start thinking, how can I progress, and how can I make this really say what I want it to say? You study the mark makings, you study what it is. I mean, I have the very strong influences of Freud, Bacon, Jenny Saville, but I also love Marlene Dumas. And I love the way that the water that she used bled into the canvas and on the paper. And that was something I wanted to somehow bring to my work, because there were some marks I just couldn't make otherwise. So yes, I changed a little bit about how I started, and I put the painting on the floor, the canvas on the floor, and I started just to map out with a very diluted wash of ink, just a sort of form of where I wanted the figure to be. And then once that had dried, I put it on the easel and thought, right, okay, this is where I hope now to bring form through using the oil paints. I wanted to bring, as you say, that technical side and bring it all together and somehow fuse the paint with the ink, but create that form that brought the woman out of off the canvas. So it started to lift the form and make it appear more 3D, not quite so flat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing I use is a raw canvas, because I don't want that strong reflective white that a lot of people need in their work. For me, I like to start on a raw canvas of either cotton or linen, which gives a completely different
type
of paint when you go across a raw canvas with all that sort of bubble, feeling, rather than the smoothness that you get from a primer canvas.
But you can see that in those background colors. You can see that's probably a lot to do with why they look like they do. The first thing that I noticed, obviously, is all the words, and you've got on the front of each of the, in fact, the one on the left, completely wings as well. And but then you've got some memories, too precious to lose. So there's a message. There's certainly a message in each one of your sculptures. And at the end of this, what I also want you to do is just show people how big these are, because these definitely are a lot bigger than that. But can we talk about what the words are? Why are the words? What are they there for? What's the story behind that?
Okay, so going out to Africa, and looking at African artwork, they don't necessarily have the money to buy the latest material. So if you look at an incredible, say, a VW Beetle that's made by an African guy sitting on a street corner with a pair of pliers and a bit of fire in his belly, I just love the fact that you've got little random elements of text and image caught up in something. So it's essentially recycled, and recycling is something that goes back to childhood. When I was watching TV shows, it was all things like the Wombles and Bagpuss, and things where you would sort of repurpose and rebuild, remake. I suppose, like, parentally, it's the post-war generation of the expression, what is it, make, do and mend, where you can just you can take all these things and give them another life, in a way that, like when your TV went south, you get somebody to come out and fix it. You wouldn't just go down and buy another one from Argos or wherever. Everything had a lifespan and a kind of drive forward. So text is in some respects doffing my hat to Africa and Africans, and it's also, if you look at a piece like either of them really that are up on the screen, it also allows you to sort of define shape and form around a piece. So it's almost like if you were doing a drawing, you'd have crosshatch shading going around the contours of a piece, and it sort of allows you to sort of compartmentalize neck, body, wings, tail. And if you were able to zoom in, or even come to the show, because the dodo and the penguin are in it, you can see how it sort of jumps and shifts between shape, between, say, the wing and the body and the legs and so on and so forth. So on certain pieces it's text specific to a commission, but generally it's just randomly found text.
So looking at this one here, for example, how have you managed to take that but have the black background? What do you do? What's your process for creating that?
The way I started is back in the COVID time, I started to photograph the tulip because I didn't have people around. My kids were already growing up and they didn't want pictures. So being at home without doing anything, it wasn't fun. So I just, it happened that I went to the market and I get some tulips, and I came home and I started to do some pictures, and yes, it seems like it was something I could do and entertain myself. So I just placed close to the window of my living room the tulips, and I find the best angle, the best way to photograph. And I did not one picture, I did a lot of pictures to get like the best lighting. And yes, it seems like everybody likes it. For example, this photograph is one of my favorite because it's one of the first I took. And a lot of people really feel like this one is very special. Even kids, when they have seen it, they just walk. And a lot of people is asking me if it's a it's a painting. And I
Yeah.
was always smiling because, well, actually it's not a painting, it was just a photograph, but some people see it like that. Maybe because of the lighting.
So I know, because we've already had a chat about this beforehand, I mean, I'm Photoshop, don't use Lightroom. You're the other way around, is that correct? You use Lightroom rather than Photoshop.
Yes,
So,
I do it because Photoshop will be is used to adjust the color, to change many things in some photograph. But for me, I see the beauty of the tulips, and the colors are beautiful itself. So why should I change it that much? I just add a little bit contrast, and if a little bit less light or more light, and that is the way I work most of my photography.
The middle one, this is actually a response to an open call. I didn't get into the exhibition. I think they had something like 3,000 or 4,000 entries.
yeah.
This is called the Responsa Foundation.
Okay.
And I hope to work with them one day because it's a cause I think very dear to my heart. It's displaying your painting if you win the competition. I think they were going to choose about 40 artists, and it was going to be across all the NHS hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get in, but it was a painting, and the heading of the painting was the homeland.
Okay.
So I had to do something which brought some sort of unity together. So this is
Okay, I can see that.
Family getting together at a wedding.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So this comes back to my previous question, probably right at the start, and also with the next one as well. Very different color palettes. So that's your middle one in particular. I can see actually probably that those colors also generate that feeling of unity, especially the way that you've used them.
Yeah.
And then the third one, similar in sort of tone, if you like, but what's going on here with this one?
Well, I think I really don't know what to say about that, but I had finished 22 paintings. I started off, the gallery said to me, you can have one painting in our gallery. And then I said, I'm not inviting guests just to see one painting. So from one painting, it went to 23 works.
We spoke about this one during the week, and you said that this was an early painting. Am I right in remembering that?
Yeah, that painting was made in response to my very first visit to Svalbard.
Yeah.
It for me it began a new phase in painting.
So what do you do? Do you sketch it? Do you sketch it while you're there? Do you take photographs? What do you do? Because obviously you're not going to, well, maybe you do, but I don't think you'd probably take a great big canvas and easel and set yourself up in the middle of a glacier and start painting. So I think that would probably be a little bit bonkers, but I might be wrong. You might do that. So what's your process?
Yeah, so you're right. It is rather tricky taking enormous canvases out there. Although I have actually thought, perhaps for my next visit, I may actually prepare some rolled up canvases that I can just unroll and work on in certain situations. I basically I make drawings and small paintings, small color sketches. I write notes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
And yes, I do take photos as well. So it's a combination of really anything I can do on site.
Yeah, because then I suppose then it's quite important where your colours and shading are to give you the impression that you with the paint work that the painting that you've created, I should say. So the different colours of the same colour or different hue, different light, darkness of it is giving the impression, which it would be if you think about it being a glacier, that's exactly what it is. All the different colors in a glacier are coming through in your work, which is pretty impressive, I have to say. This looks to be quite a sizable piece.
Yes. This is 3 meters by 1.5 meters. Yeah.
Crumbs. Okay.
Yeah, this is the most ambitious, most insane project I've ever done in my life. So this again was for my degree show, and this was the main project. So the one that we just looked at, which was Stitch, was my second project, but this was the main thing that I did for my degree show. And again, very obviously Ukrainian, screaming in your face as loud as possible, because this was sort of my response at the time for what was going on.
Yeah.
And I really, really wanted to be very obvious with my message. So on the actual piece, it says Slava Ukraini, which in English is glory to Ukraine. So obviously that's a massive phrase that we use, and it's something that, for example, if we were to see each other, like meet each other for a coffee or something, we would say hi, but we would also say Slava Ukraini to each other, basically. Okay, it's sort of like something that we just constantly verbalize and speak between ourselves.
So what about the faces, the pattern? What's the...
So the faces were... I was looking at quite a few artists at that time that were doing quite a lot of sculptural work with faces. So I was heavily influenced by like those artists like Johnson Tang. But the main reason that I did the faces was, again, because of what was happening. I sort of wanted to put faces to the issue and make it feel like you're looking at a lot of people at once. So all the faces that are sticking out on the red are... I sculpted it myself, and then I got like a mold and just casted a bunch of them, because if I had to do every single one by hand, I would again be there for like eternity.
And first of all, where did the idea of the series actually come from?
This is it comes... I mean, you cannot avoid the news, even if you don't watch too much telly. You cannot avoid it. Every single month, a woman is killed or a victim of violence, or I'd say every month, I'd say every week, maybe every day. I don't know. Who knows?
Absolutely, every day. Yeah.
Yes, and so this series of 5 works is just about that. It's about the name. The name is "Stop Violence Against Women." And now you know.
Yeah.
Now you know why the titles.
Now I know why the titles. Yeah, unbelievable.
Yes. Yes.
So this comes also back to the thing about which I've said a few times, which is you go to an exhibition, and sometimes the artist will stand next to their work and not actually talk to anybody, and often it's purely because they don't know what to say, or they're embarrassed, or somebody said to me a few years ago, I like to let my art do the talking. Truth of the matter is it doesn't. And actually, when you explain what is behind this series of pictures, suddenly the penny drops. Suddenly you can understand where you've got your which direction your brain is actually going in. Inspiration came from here.
Yeah. So this is a photograph that I found again in Westminster University Library, actually. These chaps on the railway switches of Paddington Station. So this piece is on the side of the JC Deco HQ building, which is on Prince Street, just along from Paddington Station.
Just got to see which is not that one. No, I've got it in the slideshow. So we will get to that. This is the piece that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's a sizable. What kind of weight are we talking about?
So it's actually hollow.
Okay, that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say 2.5 tons.
Right. So do you, when this goes in and this gets installed, is there an element of is there an element of keeping your fingers crossed that it's going to stay there?
Well, I think if anyone was worried, then the structural engineer would have a few questions. I mean, we trust him.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it is pretty outstanding. It's quite a stunning piece for sure.
Yeah, so the engineering on this piece was so complex, because the like key to the concept was this kind of peeling off away from the wall, and that is a theme in my work. This kind of leaning and peeling away, and I just wanted this kind of sense of taking off and of kind of reaching out into the sky, and of connecting and travel and this. So there were lots and lots of conversations about how we would kind of manage that, because it's rather heavy.
Well, just to give people a sense of size, that is you in the picture.
Yeah, that's me standing on the roof there.
That's why you're not 3'2" tall either. Because a lot of people say, what is fine art? Let's just do that for a minute. And so I've got this that comes up. So fine art photography is a style of photography created by an artist, and I think that's exactly what you are. It is the intentional use of photography as your artistic medium of choice, true, and used to further your conceptual idea. And so that's why I think that's why you sit where you do, in terms of, your work is your artistic impression of that photograph.
Right.
And so that means for me that you sit, you come up with this idea. You're not someone who just walks out, picks a camera up, takes a picture, thanks very much, job done. That's not it at all. So here's another earlier example.
I do struggle. I struggle with the word art. I just do. And
I know, yeah, but I can understand why, and I can understand why really clearly. And one of the reasons is because photography has taken so long to be regarded as art. It's, I was entering exhibitions where they would kick me out because they said, well, it's not art.
I don't know if that's the reason though, Gary. I really don't. I don't know because I think maybe it just arcs back to the bodybuilding days. Maybe it even goes further back than that. But if I take the bodybuilding as an example, I always had the attitude. I was always taught to have the attitude that there's always somebody bigger, always somebody stronger. If you're the biggest guy in the gym, you need to move to another gym. All those kind of things. So that's just the way my mentality has always been. And I've always, my attitude as well when it comes to the bodybuilding, the photography, the Photoshop, whatever, it's always right. What's next? What's my next thing? Because that's done now. Move on. And I'm kind of, I've never settled. I'm never 100% happy with my stuff. I like what I do, but I'm kind of like, yeah, but I can do better.
Well, there you go. It took me about 6 hours to put that little lot together today, after, as I said earlier, being let down last minute. But it gives you a flavour of what this channel is all about. There's about another dozen or so interviews that I've done, and they will be on the next sort of highlight show that I do. But I hope you've enjoyed it. It's interesting for me. I started this off tonight talking about fine art photography, and I've ended it tonight with what I consider to be a fine art photographer, one of the best actually out there. Glyn is absolutely amazing what he produces. Who doesn't consider himself being an artist, which is really quite interesting. There's been quite a bit of stuff going on. In fact, there you go, Glyn's watching. So he's still probably having a bit of a chuckle to himself that I've used that clip. And as I said, it's amazing how we also all think of ourselves as perhaps not being almost a little bit of imposter syndrome comes to mind in some ways. It takes a lot of confidence, takes a lot of imagination, and a hell of a lot of hard work to actually get our work out there and get our work where people can see it. And I hope you've enjoyed this. This has really been something that I've got a passion for doing. And also what I'd like to say as well is if there's anybody out there, any artist out there who would love to come on, please let me know, because it's always nice to have a decent amount of interviews up front, that I don't have to panic when someone lets me down. But as I said right at the start, some of this stuff I did a little bit at the start about my reality is for those without imagination talk, and I hope that anybody out there who is a photographer who wants to get into a bit of fine art will manage to catch my talk. I believe that there's the plans is that I might do a bit of it at Flux over the course of that weekend. Don't forget your tickets for Flux you can get on Eventbrite. It's I've been putting that up all the way through this, and apologies if I didn't get anybody's name pop up. I'm of the age where sometimes I can't remember who the hell you are. Or how to spell it, and I'm frantically searching while it was up, and of course the clip was over and done with. But listen, I'm going to have a break from this for probably April, and that's primarily to get everything set up for for you, basically set up for April. Gives me that time to get the next lot of these ready, leading right up to Flux, and we'll be interviewing artists on that. And well, look, Glyn Jewis has a show on Sunday nights at 7 o'clock on his channel. He's absolutely sensational at what he does. I can't promote him enough, quite frankly. And he's just put a comment. And thanks very much, Glyn, for that, because that's a great compliment. We've also had there's loads actually here. Paolo, of course, the Wizard of Art. He enjoys it. Lee, who watches every week. Nicely done. Thanks very much, Lee. And Scarlet Butterfly is watching, who will be performing actually at Flux as well. And of course, the fabulous Lisa Gray, who actually she is Mrs. She's the mother of Flux. We're the Flux family. She's the mother, and she's absolutely fabulous. I want to thank you all for watching. I will catch you in a month's time. And great. Thanks very much. Been wonderful.